Hey everybody, Brian Garcia, warning coordination meteorologist with the National Weather Service serving the San Francisco Bay Area and Monterey Bay regions. Here to talk to you about some cold season changes that we're doing, literally the frost freeze program and some other information. This video is actually intended for a training tool for our operational meteorologist in office here so that they know what to look for with these changes. They already have the meteorology down. They just need to know the little details about like how we're going to be issuing stuff this winter. It's also meant for our partners, so our partners can see what's going on and what type of changes we're going to be making and what types of products they should expect to see this winter. But we're also putting it out in the public land, so all of our public partners out there, you all living at home, taking a look at our YouTube channel, can watch us and see what's going on and what we're looking at this winter for some of the cold season changes. So let's get right to it. Like I said, we're talking about all the cold season changes this year, specifically frost freeze, cold weather advisory, and extreme cold warning. This is just a quick summary slide. We're going to get to this at the end, but we're going to go into each of these in kind of gory detail for the next 4 slides or so, 5 slides. And so let's start with frost advisory. First thing, map on the left. All those light blue areas are our valley zones. All the dark blue areas are all of our mountain zones. They're broken up even more than what you see here, so don't think all of the blue is just one mountain zone because we have a bunch of different mountain zones. And same thing with the valley zones. We have a bunch of different little valley zones, and the zones are going to play a critical role in terms of each of these products. So going back in the history books, when you look back at the frost advisory, freeze warning, and even back in the day we had a hard freeze warning, those were all developed in support of our agricultural partners to help them know when they could have crop damaging temperatures in their area. Eventually, some of our emergency management partners got a hold of this stuff and they were like, hey, this might work for our unsheltered or partially sheltered or inadequately sheltered populations. And so they started tapping into the frost freeze program as well. With the agricultural industry, we always kept it seasonal. Once our emergency management industry got a hold of it, in this office, we decided to take it year-round so that they had something to go off of and make some decisions off of. Now, we're taking it back to the agricultural industry. So we're going back a little bit to its classic roots. So it's going to be really intended for the agricultural industry. Although some of the home and small farmers may continue to find some utility out of this, even though we're going seasonal with the start date of April 1st and an end date of November 15th. Those are going to be the core months, that core time, April 1st through November 15th, that we will issue frost advisories and freeze warnings. For frost advisory specifically, those temperatures are going to be 33 to 36 degrees. And we're not going to distinguish between valley and mountain for those temperatures. We're just going to keep it simple. Where we're going to distinguish a little bit is by zone. So you can only have a frost advisory issued in the mountains when an adjacent valley zone either has a frost advisory or a freeze warning. So in other words, we know the mountains are going to get colder faster as we go into fall, and we could have frost advisories all the time up there as we go into fall, but we're going to make sure that we're not just issuing frost advisories all the time or clearing a zone like super fast and not issuing it all again in the mountains, but we're going to tie it to a valley zone. So that way we know when we issue a frost advisory, it's one of those systems that comes in and it's cold all the way down to sea level, and we're getting some frosty conditions throughout the area. So to issue the frost advisory, we're going to have 2 or more consecutive hours of temperatures of 33 to 36 degrees, and it must encompass at least half the zone. So if it doesn't have half the zone, we're not going to issue the frost advisory. We're going to talk about it in our area forecast discussion. We're going to put it out on social media, talk about frosty conditions in some pockets of our area, but we're not going to issue a frost advisory for the entire zone just to hit one little valley. Now, in terms of the verification and ending the frost advisory for a specific zone, we can end earlier than November 15th. We could end on, I don't know, October 22nd for a zone. But we're going to have to be able to verify that that zone actually had frosty conditions. In other words, we're going to have observations of 2 hours or more, 2 consecutive hours or more of temperatures 33 to 36 degrees, and those temperatures have to be across at least half the zone or more. So if we hit that, we can clear the zone before November 15th. So we can end our frost program earlier by zone. As we go into freeze warning, same types of things here. Freeze warning, the industry basis, again, we're taking it back to the agricultural industry, and the home and small farmers may continue to find some utility out of this in the seasonal nature that starts April 1st and runs through November 15th. But again, we can end a zone, a specific zone, earlier than November 15th if we can verify that we did indeed have 2 or more consecutive hours of temperatures 32 degrees or less with a freeze warning, and cover half the zone or more in order to verify that out and end that zone for the season. Freeze warnings, freeze watches, and freeze warnings, those are going to be for temperatures when we think it's 32 degrees or less. Again, the mountain zones are going to be tied to the valley zones, like I talked about with the frost advisories. And in order to issue it, we have to have the supporting data to show that we expect 2 or more consecutive hours of temperatures of 32 degrees or less and over half a zone. So, frost and freeze warning. And in short, back to the agricultural stuff. The reason we're able to put it back to the agricultural stuff and make it seasonal again is because the National Weather Service headquarters has given us the ability to issue cold weather advisories and extreme cold watches and warnings. So, cold weather advisory. This is going to be one of those things that, frost freeze, great, agricultural. Cold weather advisory, it's all about human life safety. This is intended for the agencies with a life safety responsibility or adjacent tangential agencies that work with those agencies that have that direct life safety responsibility. We're going to issue cold weather advisories year-round when guidance is met. So cold weather advisories, we're going to mirror the temperatures of the frost advisory, so 33 to 36 degrees for both the valley and the mountain zones. We're just going to make it really simple this year as a transition year for everybody. We're going to tie it to the mountains again. So in other words, if you want a mountain zone in it, you have to have an adjacent valley zone in the cold weather advisory or extreme cold watch or warning. And for issuance and verification, we're going to look for, again, 2 consecutive hours or more of temperatures of 33 to 36 degrees for the cold weather advisory. And it must encompass at least half of the forecast zone or a population center. So when we're talking about, and we're just going to use, we'll use Oakland as an example. Like if we think the zone that Oakland's in, for the most part, is going to be 37 or 38 degrees. Like all the data is pointing 37, 38 degrees. But Oakland proper, like the entire city of Oakland, and this, by the way, this is completely fabricated, and I don't think it would ever happen, but the entire city of Oakland is expected to be 34 to 35 degrees. If we expect the entire city of Oakland to be 34 or 35 degrees, and the rest of the zone is like 37, 38 degrees, we can still issue the cold weather advisory because of the high impact nature on human life in the city of Oakland. So those are the types of examples that we'll be looking at for going away from having half of the zone be covered in the 33 to 36 degree temperature for cold weather advisory, but instead looking at the impact basis on human life in a densely populated area. So, cold weather advisory. Extreme cold watches and warnings, we're going to issue those. Same type of things, cold weather advisory. It's all intended for human life safety, for agencies with a life safety responsibility, as well as tangential agencies. We're going to issue them year-round. We're going to issue them any time that guidance is met. For the extreme cold watch and warning, we're going to be looking for temperatures in the data of 32 degrees or less. So it's going to mirror the freeze warning that we have, but it's got to be 32 degrees or less, because freeze warnings we can end because that's agricultural industry, right? With the extreme cold watch and warning, we can issue these year round. So this can happen in December, January, February timeframe. We can hit it then. Again, for issuance and verification, we're going to be looking at 2 or more consecutive hours of temperatures of 32 degrees or less. Must encompass at least half the zone, or again, a population center. So if San Jose ends up being like 30 degrees, but Morgan Hill and Gilroy are all like 38 degrees, we can still issue an extreme cold warning for that zone because San Jose is such a massive population center. So that's pretty much the changes to our cold products this year. Again, frost advisory, freeze warning, agricultural based. They're going to be held to the warm growing season, and they begin April 1st and end no later than November 15th. So they're being held by a season there. Cold weather advisory and extreme cold warning, those are people based. So we're going to be looking at the impacts on human health, and those are going to be issued year round on an as needed basis. So where do we go from here? Well, this winter, we're going to be looking at these really closely. Frost freeze is going to remain seasonal. That's kind of all there is to it. But the cold weather advisory and extreme cold warnings, we're going to be talking to a lot of our partners out there, trying to figure out how these products worked for them, what kind of adjustments we can make, if we want to adjust the temperatures at all. And then next summer, we'll do all that research and we'll talk to the partners. And then by the time we get to winter 26-27, we'll have some new changes to the temperature thresholds. So we'll probably adjust them down so that we're not issuing a lot of extreme cold warnings, for example. We'll be issuing fewer of them so that they'll have a little bit more teeth to them. So look for those changes. Look for us to be sharing some of those changes, sharing what we're looking at, what we're thinking about in terms of this cold weather stuff. And with that, that's it. There are your changes to the cold season stuff that we do: frost, freeze, cold weather advisories, and extreme cold warnings. And as with any seasonal change, as with whether heat, cold, rain, wind, snow, whatever it is, make sure that you take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and be good to one another. See you, everybody. Bye.